Hello and welcome to the ScatterVolt channel, and today let me show you guys how to build the best $800 gaming PC in 2023. Now yes, I get it, I'm using a pink PC case, but that's because I want to. Which is something to say that yes, you can build a unique and cool looking gaming PC that is still going to perform very well for under $1,000. So with that said, in today's PC build guide video, I'm going to show you how to put together this computer step by step, the parts going inside of it, how to install Windows, how to install graphics card drivers, and then the 1080p to 1440p gaming performance possible on this PC, and then finishing out with my final thoughts on this pink PC build for $800. Now disclaimer, you can get this in either black or white, don't worry, but like I said, we're going with pink. So before we get started, I'm gonna let you know that if you want the best prices possible on the parts I'm using in this build guide, you're gonna wanna go over to your nearest Microcenter and pick up these parts for yourself, which, speaking of, everything I show off in this video and in order to make this build possible can be found in the description below. So with that said, let's get started with the build. Okay, so before we start digging into these PC parts and opening them up, let me show you what you need to actually build this computer. So, pair of scissors, that's fairly obvious. Phillips head screwdriver, you're gonna need this for installing the majority of components inside the gaming PC and with tinkering with the PC case. But besides this Phillips head screwdriver, you will need a Phillips head 1 screwdriver that is a little bit smaller for our M.2 SSD we're gonna put on our motherboard. And then the last thing you need is a Windows bootable media device that you're gonna use to install Windows 11 or 10 onto your gaming PC. Now the good news is that I made a full-blown tutorial showing you how to make one of these on a USB, so watch that once you get to the Windows section of this build guide. And let's start with our processor and motherboard, which is going to be the i5-12400 12th gen processor, 6 cores, 12 threads. And if you're a gamer, get the 12400F, but if you're a creative professional, it's worth looking into the 12400 because of those integrated Intel HD graphics with that quick sync decoder and encoder, which is fairly helpful. So here's our processor, we'll set that aside. Here is our CPU cooler, which by the way, already comes with thermal paste pre-applied. So let's set this aside. Then for our motherboard choice, we are going with the Asus Prime B660M-A-D4. Now for this build guide, we only need like a mid-range B660 motherboard, so this one from Asus is gonna do totally fine. Although note, this motherboard doesn't come with any built-in Wi-Fi, so you will need to get a separate PCI Wi-Fi card or a USB Wi-Fi chip, but those are fairly inexpensive. Or you could just plug this into a router and be all good to go. Ooh. That looks good. Anyways, inside the motherboard box, here are a few things you need to note. This is an IO shield. You will need this. And that's it. Oh, wait, no. If you're a complete noob to building computers and even if you're watching this video, you still don't know exactly what to do, you do have this manual here from Asus that'll tell you all the things you need to know about this motherboard, where to plug in what is exactly what on this motherboard. If you want to install RGB or any USB related things on the motherboard, you can find that out in the manual. And one last thing to note, if you shop at Microcenter, you can get the 12400 and the B660 with a $20 off coupon code. So do note, you can get some extra savings if you shop at your nearest Microcenter for this CPU and motherboard combo. Which leads us to the RAM, which I've chosen this 2x8 gigabyte kit of RAM from Team Group. This is the T-Force White RGB RAM kit, clocked at 3200 megahertz, cast latency of 16. It's not super expensive, so it's got the looks, but it's not gonna break the bank. So I'm excited to see how these RGB sticks turn on once we build the computer. And then lastly, for our main storage, I'm gonna go with the Crucial P5 Plus. Now this is an interesting one. At Microcenter, you can pick this up for a fairly respectable price, but I think this is probably the most affordable high-end M.2 SSD you can get right now on the market. It's got PCI Gen 4.0. It's got a very strong sequential write and read speed in the thousands. This is TLC and it comes with a built-in DRAM controller, and this is at 500 gigabytes. So if you truly wanted the best of the best without completely breaking the bank, for a storage drive, then the P5 Plus would be one to look at. There are more affordable options than that, but if you get an SSD like this for your first gaming PC, you won't really need to swap this out for anything new for at least another 5 years. So that is the P5 Plus, and now let's go ahead and install everything onto the motherboard. Okay, let's go ahead and install the 12400, which if you open it up and you're wondering, how do I place this into the motherboard correctly? Well, there's a triangle here on the bottom left of the CPU, and you're gonna line up this triangle with the triangle here on the bottom left of the socket. And really the name of the CPU should be legible once you put this in, but to open up the socket, let's open this latch up, pull this metal protective bracket out of here, and then just gently drop down the CPU in place. Give it a little shake, make sure it's in there, and then let's put back on the shield, and then press down this arm and lock it in. So this is what your CPU should look like inside of the B660M A-Prime. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and place in the CPU cooler. Now, you don't have to put this in a certain way. You can put it in any way you want. However, do note that here is where the CPU cooler fan cable is. So we probably wanna put this near the top, so that way the cable isn't in the way. So we're gonna put this like that. There are 4 holes here on the motherboard around the socket where the CPU is, and we'll just drop this in. And once that is in, it's pretty easy. We'll just press each of these pins into the motherboard. Should hear a click, and do this for all 4 sides. There we go. That is all the way in. And let's flip around the motherboard. Right here, there are 2 fan headers at the top of the motherboard, a CPU fan header and a CPU opt. Don't worry about the CPU opt, that's just optional, but the CPU fan is where we're gonna put in the CPU fan header cable. And this will only go in a certain way, and we'll tidy this up. There we go. Now let's go ahead and put in our RAM onto the motherboard. And one thing you'll notice is that these slots here on the motherboard are different sizes. So this RAM can only go in one way. So we're gonna flip this around, and we're gonna open up 2 gray latches, this one and this one, not these 2 that are closest to the motherboard or closest to the CPU. Make sure you hear an audible click. So with our CPU cooler, and RAM installed, now let's go ahead and finish out with the M.2 SSD. So grab your Phillips head 1 screwdriver, and let's unscrew this M.2 PCI heat shield. There we go. All right, let's take this out. Now before you totally remove this, flip it over and you'll see there's this little plastic seal you gotta take off. That way the M.2 SSD can make contact with the heat shield for better heat dissipation. Here is our P5 Plus. It is gonna be facing down unfortunately, but that is okay. So you can see there's this little notch right here in the middle of the connector, and this will match up with the connector because this will only go in a certain way. So go ahead and put that in, and you should hear a little click once this is all the way in. There we go. And now let's put back on the M.2 heat shield. Okay, so in order to put in the motherboard into the PC case, let's go ahead and open this up. So let's open up the front panel here and open up the back side panel. Now, if we look here in the back of the PC case, let's see, is there a little, yep, there's a little baggie right here in the hard drive bay. And in this baggie is exactly what you'd expect. It's all the screws you'll need to install the motherboard, the graphics card, and anything else into this PC case. So you don't need to go out and buy your own screws or stuff like that. So in here, you're given an extra PCI cover slot. That's pretty handy. Some zip ties, which we won't bother for now. And then here are all of your screws. Now, if you're confused at all on where to put what inside this PC case, there is this handy little guide here that Vetru provided with the M03 for this micro ATX tower. So this will tell you where to put in what. It could even be like a future radiator if you're using a water cooler or anything like that. Hard drives, SATA SSDs, you can all find it in here. So now there's 2 things I want you to go ahead and do. Remember our IO shield from earlier? Let's go ahead and install this. So let's go ahead and put this in. Now you have 2 sides to this. You have a flat side and a side with these little pokey out bits. So we want the side with the pokey out bits facing inward into the PC case and the flat side on the outside. So this is fairly easy. Just gotta line it up with the 4 sides here on the case. Oh, we're gonna do this from the inside. There we go. All right, that is completely in. Check out these little black screws that are inside of the PC case. These are your standoffs. This is what helps maintain contact between the motherboard and the PC case. And ideally, you want to have enough standoffs to cover all of the holes you'll need to screw in on your motherboard. So do note, right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws in here. And it looks like on the motherboard, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 holes on here. So we're gonna need to grab 2 extra standoff screws. So like I said earlier, here are the 2 holes that aren't covered off by the case. Here are the standoff screws from that baggie full of screws that we're gonna go ahead and put right here and right here. So now with all of the standoffs required to install the motherboard into the PC case, now let's go ahead and drop this in. Now this should line up with your IO shield. You should be able to press right up to it, so that way you line up the standoffs with the holes. Meaning you can now use these screws to screw in the motherboard into those standoffs attached to the PC case. So one by one, I'm gonna go ahead and screw these in halfway. All right, I've got these all semi-tightened. So now let's go ahead and go to one corner, tighten this screw all the way, go to the other corner, tighten this screw all the way, and we're gonna repeat this across the motherboard. That way we apply equal pressure to all sides of the motherboard when this thing is fully screwed into the standoffs, and it doesn't risk potentially bending it with like a heavy graphics card in the future. All right, that is fully tightened in. Now if you had a black or white version of this PC case, you'll only have one pre-installed fan, but with this pink version of the Vetru M03, and note here are the 3 pink RGB fans that came with this PC case. We'll be installing these in the front soon, but that'll be for later. So let's go ahead and install the power supply, which I've chosen this 600 watt 80 plus gold power supply from Thermaltake. Now you don't need this exact power supply in order to make this PC build guide here work. It can be from any brand, as long as the wattage is at least 500 watts. That's what you're shooting for. So 600 watts is gonna be plenty. I understand though that you can't get this good of a power supply online right now for this price unless you're shopping at Microcenter. So I'll link an alternative down below. But once again, this is another incentive to shop at your local Microcenter because you can grab this up for I think around 50 bucks. So let's go ahead and turn around the PC case. Let's open up this. Here is our power supply. The only thing you'll need from this box right here is your power supply cable. That'll go from the wall outlet to the power supply. Now, one thing to note is, as good as the deal this power supply is, it does have mustard colored cables, which I know is unappealing to some. And in this PC case, it may not work at all, which nothing to worry about, because we're gonna go ahead and use some of these power supply extension cables. Now, these aren't necessary, they're completely optional, but they will make our power supply cables look a lot cooler, which I think is kind of necessary in a a pink PC build like this. So you want to grab 4 of these case screws here from that baggie you found in the PC case. These will also come with a power supply, but we'll go ahead and grab 4 of these. So have your fan side facing down, going into the PC case. Put this in the back. Grab your Phillips head screwdriver, line this up with the 4 holes, put in a screw, and start screwing this in. All right. So real quick, before we start plugging in everything into the motherboard, let me go ahead and show you what is what on the back side of this PC case. So right here are your front I/O cables that control your reset button, your power button, your HDD LED, and so on and so forth. And then you have your USBs here, like your USB 3.0, your USB 2.0, and this HD audio connector for your audio jack on the PC case. Then luckily here for the power supply cables, they are all neatly labeled. Like this is your CPU power cable, this is your PCIe power cable for your graphics card, and this big guy right here is your motherboard power connector. And like I said earlier, this is the pink version of the Vetru M03 that we're using, so it does come with 3 RGB fans and this RGB fan controller. And this is probably gonna be powered by a SATA, yep, that is a SATA connector. So in addition to the power supply, CPU, and motherboard power cables, we're also going to need a SATA power cable, like one of these, which is what you use for like say a hard drive or a SATA SSD, but we're actually gonna be using it for the RGB controller and fan controller for these 3 included RGB fans. So like I said, we're using the pink version of the Vetru M03. So here are 3 pink ARGB fans, and in each of these we're given the fan, some cables, and these screws needed to put these into the PC case. Now, because I want this PC case to look the most appealing it can be in a YouTube thumbnail, I'm gonna put all 3 of these in the front, but if I were you, I'd put 2 of these in the front and 1 on the top as exhaust. And one other tip I'm gonna give you guys is that here are the cables. I'm gonna put these facing this way, do it like this. Gonna take our cables, we're gonna shove them through this little hole on this side of the case so we can mess around with them. And 1 more to go. All right, I've got 3 fans now installed on the front of the PC case. This is our little fan controller. No, this is our RGB remote right here. Probably a piece to help stick the controller to the back side of the PC case. We'll save this for later, but now we've got the cables from our fans in the front now to also deal with on top of all of this, but don't worry, I'll show you what to do. All right, and with this attached to the RGB and fan controller for our 3 front ARGB fans, and now actually our rear case fan, because we can actually plug that into this here. Let's go ahead and place this right here in this little spot on the back side of the case. Make sure this has full contact so it doesn't slip off. There we go. So our RGB is on the top and our fan headers are on the bottom. We'll mess with this later, but let's go ahead and start plugging in our fans on the front and our rear fan on the back of the case. So let's start with this going here. There we go. Here's the RGB from that rear fan going into here. That is in. Now start with our first of the 3 front fans. Here's our top fan. Let's go ahead and plug in the fan header. And then here is the RGB from that top fan. Let's plug this in here up top. There we go. Here's our middle fan on the front. Let's go ahead and plug this in. And then here is the RGB. There we go. And then finally, here is our bottom fan. Let's plug in the fan header, the final slot. And here is our RGB going here up top. All right. And now for the fan and RGB controller, now we have the power that we'll need for our SATA power connector. Here's the 5-volt RGB header that's gonna go into our motherboard to control all of the RGB for all the fans. And then here's our singular fan header that'll control all the fan headers for the fans in the PC case. So while we're here, let's go ahead and plug in one of these SATA connectors into the power for our RGB and fan controller. There we go, like that. And we'll leave that there for now. Okay, now let's go ahead and start plugging in the power connectors into the motherboard. But before we do that, again, I don't want to see these ugly mustard colored cables inside the PC case. So let's go ahead and plug in these power supply extension cables, which are completely optional, but I think are worth it, especially for this pink PC case. Okay, here's our CPU power cable. Let's go ahead and plug this extension cable in. And then here is our PCIe power cable, AKA our graphics card power cable. Let's go ahead and plug in the last of our extension cables. Let's go ahead and plug in our motherboard power cable, this big guy right here. Here's our little latch right here. Here's a notch. The 2 will meet up, so this can only go in one way. Here's our CPU power cable. This will only go in one way. The latch is gonna meet up with the notch on the connector. There we go. And then finally, let's go ahead and thread our PCIe power cable like this, just hanging out outside the PC case for when we eventually put in our graphics card right here. Now let's go ahead and plug in our front I/O cable, starting with the power button, reset button, HDD LED, and power LED minus and plus. Now, if you're confused for how to plug this into your motherboard, please refer to the motherboard manual for where it says the front I/O header. That'll show you the exact pin layout to follow with this. But if you're confused at all, the HDD LED is going to go on the bottom left, and then right next to it is the reset button. And then above the reset button is your power button. And then next to the power button is the power LED minus and power LED plus. So this is what your front I/O cables should look like when plugged into the motherboard. So now let's go ahead and plug in your HD audio connector, aka your audio jack, on the PC case. This will only go in one way on the bottom left of the motherboard. Now let's go ahead and plug in the USB header, and this will go in either one of two ports that are labeled USB on your motherboard. And again, these will only go in one way. Then here is your USB 3.0 header, and it's gonna go right here in this thick slot. And again, there's a little notch on the connector that's gonna line up with this insert. It's gonna only go in one way. There you have it. So this here is our one and only fan header from the RGB and fan controller that is controlling the front 3 fans and the single rear fan in the PC case. And now that all of those are hooked up into that fan controller, we only need one connector to plug into the motherboard that'll control all 4 fans. And I'm gonna choose this one right next to the power cable for the motherboard. And just like with the fan header for the fan and RGB controller, we have a single 5-volt ARGB header that controls all the RGB on all the case fans, which we're gonna plug into one of these 5-volt RGB ports on the motherboard, and we are done. And all of this leads us to the final and most exciting part of this PC build guide, the graphics card. And for this, I have chosen the Radeon RX 6600. Now, as of filming this video, this is the best $250 graphics card to get for an $800 gaming PC build guide like this, but there's also the Intel Arc A750, which I do recommend you check out. Hopefully I make a video comparing the two graphics cards in a future video to determine which one is the best for your money, but both are pretty excellent. However, you can get this one from your local Microcenter for a fairly inexpensive price, which is why I'm recommending it. Also, it looks pretty good. Anyways, as for some highlights on the Radeon RX 6600, it is an excellent 1080p gaming graphics card that can even do 1440p with the right hardware, which we are going to do a little bit of in this gaming PC build. It has 8 gigabytes of VRAM, which is the standard, I'd say, right now for a graphics card. And for $250, no other graphics card can beat it in terms of value other than the Arc A750. And yes, you can do streaming with this Radeon RX 6600 actually fairly well with some recent updates to AMD Relive and the AVC encoder that comes with these Radeon graphics cards. Okay, and now let's go ahead and insert the graphics card, which first, make sure to take off this PCI cover. That way the graphics card can make a connection with the topmost PCI slot on the motherboard. Then grab your Phillips head screwdriver. Go ahead and unscrew this little protector here for the PCI covers. And then let's look inside the PC case, see where the topmost PCI slot is, where our graphics card is gonna go into, and let's see what PCI slot covers are populating it so we can remove these, which will just break off by hand. So now we are all ready to insert the RX 6600 into this gaming PC. So let's line it up with the slot right here. All right, that has made contact, and now let's go ahead and firmly press this in, and you should hear an audible click. There you go, that is latched in. Real quick, do you guys remember the screws that we use for the power supply? You're gonna wanna use those same screws for screwing in the graphics card into the PC case. So let's go ahead and press this latch back in, tighten this up, bring this around. Might need to raise the graphics card a little bit, and let's screw in this top screw for good measure. And for the final step in finishing off this $800 gaming PC build guide, plug in your power cable for the graphics card into this connector right here. Make sure there's that latch, and we are done. So at this point, you are ready to boot up the computer. So let's go ahead and run through our checklist. So make sure you have your keyboard plugged into your computer, have a mouse that's also available to you. And then as far as powering on the computer, make sure to have that power supply cable from the power supply box plugged in from your wall outlet to the power supply, and then flick the switch on the back of the power supply from the O to the line. That is gonna prime it and makes it ready to boot when you press that power button. Then don't forget to plug in a display cable from the graphics card to the monitor. It can be HDMI, it can be DisplayPort, it doesn't matter. And then finally, don't forget to provide power to your monitor, just to make sure it actually turns on. And with that, you are basically ready to boot up your computer, and now it's time to insert your Windows bootable media device. Now for this gaming PC, I'm using Windows 11, and if you want to learn how to create one of these for a gaming PC build like this, then I have a video linked in the description or as a card right now on screen for how to make one of these off of any 8 GB or bigger flash drive. In she goes. All ready to boot. And let's go ahead and press the power button. Ooh, wait a sec. Hold up. There we go. All right, we are in business, and here's the Windows installation screen. Let's go ahead and install Windows onto the gaming PC. All right, let's go ahead and hit next. Install now. Here's where you can enter in your Windows product key, but for this build, we're gonna go ahead and skip it because I haven't bought one yet. But I'm gonna go ahead and choose Windows 11 Home. That looks good. I accept, hit next, custom. There is our 500 gigabyte Crucial P5 Plus. Hit next, and there we go. We'll just have to wait. Okay, so now that I've reached here, let's go ahead and choose your country, click US. Now let's go ahead and connect to your Wi-Fi. So I'll go ahead and connect to this one. All right, let's hit next. You don't have to name your device, but if you want to, the option's there. Now let's go ahead and sign into our Microsoft account. So if you don't have one, create one. Fortunately for me, I already have one. So I'll go ahead and go to this one. So this is giving me the option to restore from a previous desktop, but this is a brand new computer, so I'm gonna hit view more options, set up as a new device, hit next, and that should be all good. So let's go ahead and create our PIN, which is what we're gonna use to log into our computer. I like to do ASDF. Now for all of these privacy settings, I just turn them off. There are extra processes running in the background that I just don't need. I skip all of this. I want a clean vanilla experience. Don't need Android. I don't need Microsoft 365. I don't need that. I don't need Game Pass. And there we go, we did it. Okay, and the final thing we need to do is to install graphics card drivers. So let's go ahead and type in Radeon drivers into Google. Let's click on AMD drivers and support. Okay, here is the screen. Let's go ahead and zoom in. Okay, so we can either use the auto detect tool, which will do all the work for us, or we can just choose the graphics card we have, which is the RX 6600. Hit submit. We are on Windows 11, so we'll select that and we'll go ahead and use the recommended driver. And there it is. Let's go ahead and wait for it to download. All right, let's go ahead and hit yes. Let's hit install. Okay, there we go. Let's hit install. Okay, and let's go ahead and hit the restart button and let's enter the BIOS and do one more thing. All right, so let's go ahead and enter the BIOS in order to do one more thing. So let's go ahead and press F2 or delete on our keyboard to enter the BIOS. Here we go. Now, this is the one thing we need to change. Right here where it says XMP or whatever that looks like on your motherboard BIOS, we want to enable that to whatever profile is available. And that is all we need to do. Let's go ahead and click save and exit. And we are done, and now you are ready to get to gaming. All right, let's start off with the game I like to play, Halo Infinite. This is how you do it. This is how it's done. Might get absolutely schooled though, because it's rocket launchers. Oh, I'm playing the game at high settings. Frame rate looks good, but I'm gonna get smoked. That was preemptive. That was preemptive, don't worry. I will say, look at the frame rate on the top left, and if you like what you see, then this gaming PC might be for you. Once again, we are recording and playing the game at the same time, so frame rate's gonna be a little bit lower than what you actually get. There we go. You know, I like this. This is fun. No sweaty, guys. Ooh. Oh, got one. Got another one. Oh, I'm in the enemy base. That was way more fun than anything I've gotten in Fortnite. Oh. Oh no, this is gonna be spicy. Hey man. Oh, wait. I don't know how much of this I can take, but we'll see. We're hovering around 60 frames per second at high settings. This is at 1440p, by the way. All right, man. I don't know about the grapples and stuff, but oh, bro, stop sweating. Okay, there we go. Ooh, look at that shot. And I got that double kill. Ah, I love Halo. It is a shame to see where Infinite has gone. But what isn't a shame is the constant frame rate we're getting at 1440p at high settings. Shoot. All right. Shoot. Don't take me. I got swarmed and I couldn't do anything right there. Okay, you know what? This might be my last gun, and I'll probably call it. Admittedly, we could lower the graphic. Actually, let's do something real quick. Let's go ahead and lower the graphics settings to medium. We are now chilling at about, probably gained about an extra 10 frames per second right there from going from high to medium. If you did lower the resolution down to 1080p, you'd be in good company, but I want to do 1440p on this gaming PC. All right, I'm happy with that. Let's move on to the next game. And now you can see I'm in a depressed state because I hate this game. But I gotta play it for you guys, so let me go ahead and show you the graphics settings that I chose. Apparently you guys are crazy. You want to see Fortnite, even on like a semi high-end mid-range gaming PC like this, to be run at performance API just for the frame rate. Like, if your Fortnite experience wasn't cursed enough, now you just want maximum frame rate. So hey, look at the frame rate meter on the top left. If you like what you see, fantastic, but just note this is running on the performance API at 1440p. And I'm letting you know right now, I see no problems. I want to stop the recording right now, but you guys need to see a little bit more. We are definitely getting the most frame rate of all time, for sure. 200 frames per second. Is that good enough? I hope it is. It's running great. 1440p performance API. You're gonna completely max out the refresh rate on your monitor, dude. You're good. This is a very playable experience. There are more pressing issues in this world than playing Fortnite on a gaming PC that costs $800, all right? It's gonna run great. Even if you didn't run on performance API, it's gonna run good. Hey, okay, all right. Check this. See, that was a kill. Oh. Oh, that was a hit. Oh, I asked for the Fortnite and I received the Fortnite. And now we drop down. Boys, where we dropping? You know what? I think earlier in the recording, I did get a kill. I think I did. You know, that guy, he kind of disappeared. He did a Fortnite, which is why let's move on to the next game. All right, we are on Forza Horizon 5 now. I'm back in a better mood. We are running the game at high settings, 1440p. And there's the frame rate on the top left. It's a little bit construed, but you can see it. And we are running this quick rally event. Again, this is playable. I got no complaints, although we are recording and playing at the same time, so performance could be better. And we're gonna brake, take a wide line, get a good exit. We're gonna keep the car planted. Oh no, that's understeer. Understeer into oversteer. Ooh. All right, we gotta pass 2 more people. Oh my God, the game just crashed. No way. Oh, what? Okay, let's go ahead and move on to Apex Legends. I have pretty much everything maxed out at 1440p, unlimited frame rate. Just want to see how smooth this game is because it is pretty well optimized. Again, we are recording and playing at the same time, so please do keep that in mind. But let's go ahead and run our usual firing range test. See if I can beat my high score. Oh, I have yet to miss a shot. Oh man, what is this? I don't want to talk. This might be good. This might be good. Oh! All right, keep it up. Oh, missed one. Oh, that's so quick, man. Oh, that was good. That was pretty good. And I felt like I wasn't hampered at all by the hardware. All right, I'll take that. Let's move on to the next game. All right, now I want to show you guys a little bit of Red Dead Redemption 2, which is fairly graphically demanding. Now, yes, I have never played this story in this game before, so that's why I'm at the very start. But I want to let you know, though, that this game is running at medium to high settings. Actually, let's go ahead and show you real quick. Here on settings, we'll go to graphics. Let me go ahead and show you what's up. Texture quality is ultra, anti-tropic filtering is at 4x, and the rest are around medium, high, ultra. This is what the game set for me. And the frame rate, as I said, is on the top left. If you like what you see, great. But one thing I noticed is that the game chose to run this at 1080p, not 1440p. So while the frame rate is decently high, it would be lower if we ran this game at 1440p, which might be a little bit much for that RX 6600, even though it is still a pretty fantastic card. Well, so far the frame rate is smooth, although like I haven't encountered anything crazy, so it's all right. Man, this is a slow-paced game. There's nothing much exciting. But hey, the graphics card and the whole system is taking it in stride, so I've got no complaints. Ooh. Right now we're maintaining a steady 86 frames per second right now in this cutscene. The game looks great though. Man, I guess for more cinematic experiences like this, you don't need the highest of frame rates, so I'm pretty pleased. All right, you know what? I think we got the gist of it. Yeah, we got the gist of it. All right, there you go. There's Red Dead Redemption 2. Let's move on to the next game. All right, let's finish out the gameplay section with some excitement now on F1 2022. Hopefully I get a good launch here. I don't get it. I don't get it. The car just wheel spins a bunch right there. But see if we can make up some positions. Anyways, we got the frame rate on the top left. If you like what you see, then great. Because I am running the game at high settings, 1440p, without any FSR turned on. So there is more frame rate to be had. Oh yeah, I don't want my front wing to go, man. Okay, all right, we got a fast corner coming up here. Hopefully we take it all right. Oh man, that was terrible. All right, heartbreaking. Don't mind me, just coming through. I'm not even thinking about the gaming PC right now. I'm just playing the game. All right, front wing is damaged. This is not gonna go down well. All right, slipstream, and then we pull out. And you know what? I think that's all right. The frame rate was excellent. There were no 1% low, well, there was no poor 1% low performance. That was pretty smooth. And let's go ahead and finish out the build video. Wait, don't click off the video yet. There's one more thing we gotta do. Now we're done. So that is it. That is an $800 gaming PC you can build in 2023 that I think performs pretty reasonably well. Now, all those gaming benchmarks, aside from Red Dead Redemption 2, were done at 1440p, and I think the frame rate was pretty respectable. So I guess if you wanted to bump it down to 1080p, you could, but this computer can do 1440p depending on the game. Of course, you aren't gonna run Starfield, that's gonna release in September at 1440p. That's just gonna be too much for this computer. But if you're probably gonna run Valorant, Fortnite, Apex, Call of Duty, any of those games that are pretty popular and pretty well optimized, are gonna run at 1440p on this computer. Other than that, I have no complaints on the performance of this computer other than that one random crash that happened in Forza Horizon 5, and that was it. So, whatever. I think that was just a random occurrence. And as far as the actual building and computer goes, I think this is pretty in line with what to expect with an $800 computer. It wasn't too challenging to build this. The case was pretty all right, and it's actually a pretty good deal because you get those 3 extra RGB fans that you can put on the front or the top. And I think this case in whole is like, what, 80 bucks? Not too bad of a deal. And just because I know this is gonna be brought up in the comment section a lot, yes, you can stream and game on this computer. You totally can. And you can also do VR. And with that, that is all I have for this build video. Thank you so much for all of you who've watched till the end. You are very cool. I'll just leave it at that. You're very cool. And with that, thank you so much for watching. And this is the ScatterVolt channel signing out.